Bansang nagkakaisa, sama-samang babangon muli. Yan ang isusulong ng administrasyon ni Pangulong Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Magandang gabi Pilipinas, ako po si Attorney Miko Clavano at ito ang The Chatroom. A just and peaceful society anchored on the principles of transparency, accountability, fairness, and truth. Yan ang pananaw ng ating Department of Justice at ang misyon nito magkaroon ng mabisa, mahusay at patas na hustisya. And for today's episode, we have Department of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla. Sec Boying, before we tackle the issues that are faced by the department, we'd like to get to know you more up close and personal. So if you don't mind, a couple of questions, Sec, that go into the personal life. We'll start with your name, Sec. How did it become Boying after Jesus Crispin?
It's a name very common in my mother's hometown of Naik.
I see.
And it was given to me.
Right. The history, Sec, of your whole career. Has it always been in politics, or did you start off first in the private sector before going into politics?
I began with the practice of law. Because I got married at the age of 21, and my father took care of my studies until I became a lawyer. So after I became a lawyer, I had to be on my own already. So I practiced my law for 10 years before I joined government on a full-time capacity with the presidential management staff. I was part-time with the provincial board while practicing law in the early 1990s.
It's like, as a father or as a son or as a family man, how would you describe your persona at home?
Well, I'm actually a very serious person. I'm fun-loving, but I'm pretty serious with what I do. I want to get things done as fast as I can.
Not a lot of people know, Sec, about the other side. So they know you as a politician, they know you as a government server, a public servant. Would you describe your other side, your creative, if you have? Do you play any sports?
Yeah, now I play golf. I used to be a player of the Ateneo de Manila in high school, basketball. I used to write poetry and plays and direct them. And I used to write songs. That's part of my creative side. And I think I was pretty good at it while we were doing it. So I'm pretty more or less a very well-balanced person.
Has it always been your dream, Sec, to become a public servant or a politician?
I always wanted to be a lawyer as a young man. And it was a single-minded ambition that I had, that I would be a lawyer. And I just pursued it to the point where I really became a lawyer.
Right. Your father was previous governor.
He was also a lawyer, and he was a governor of the province of Cavite for 14 years.
Yes.
From 1979 to 1986, and from 1988 to 1995. So he was a long-time governor of the province, and he was a disciplinarian. And I'm the eldest son, so I had to follow, more or less, you follow in your father's footsteps when you're the eldest son.
Just to jump off from that, Sec, did he influence you, or did he lead the way for you to enter
public service, yes. His ways of public service, his way of serving the country or the people, influenced me a lot about my philosophy of public service.
Did he impart this also to your brothers who are also in public service?
In some ways, but probably I was the one who watched him the most, because I was already, I was conscious already. By the time he became governor, I was already in college.
Right. Like, because your brothers are also in politics or in public service, how do you bond with them? And what's the conversation like at home?
We speak on the phone. We tell stories to each other. Whenever we have a chance to be together.
Is it more of politics, or is it more personal
everything,
when you're together?
Everything. We talk about sports, about politics, everything. Human interest.
Right. And to your sons, what type of a father are you, Sec?
I don't know. You have to ask them that. But I think that my serious side is the one that really comes out. Yes.
As a husband, Sec, how are you with your wife? I know you've been married for a long time.
Only my wife can answer that.
But I know you've been married for about
40 years. 40 years. At the age of 21, I got married.
Right. And still going strong, Sec, I believe, though.
Hopefully. Yeah.
As a lawyer, Sec, how has that prepared you for this position and role now as DOJ Secretary?
Well, you have to be a lawyer to do this job.
Yes, of course.
And all the philosophy that comes out that is needed for this job is there in my training as a lawyer. But of course, it's not just being a lawyer, it's having a complete view of the world and a complete view of the country that's more important.
Right.
Because the law cannot be by itself the only one that will guide you, but it is also the needs of the country that are there for us to fulfill.
Sec, I guess the last question for this segment is, how do you balance your time? How do you do everything? I know you're a very well-balanced person.
I sleep early. I value my rest, and I wake up early. And from there, I try to be productive.
Right.
For as long as I can be productive the whole day.
What time do you wake up, Sec?
4:30.
Wow. Right. Okay. And we'll get to know more about DOJ Secretary Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla sa pagbabalik ng The Chatroom.
Para sa mga kababayan nating naiipit sa kaguluhan, inaabuso at nanganganib ang buhay, ikinagagalak kong sa ilalim ng aking pamumuno ay ilulunsad natin ang One Repatriation Command Center o ORCC. Ilalaan natin ang isang social media platform ng Department of Migrant Workers at ang hotline upang matulungan agad at maligtas sila mula sa mas higit na kapahamakan.
At nagbabalik ang The Chatroom, and we have the Department of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla. Sec, we already talked about your career briefly, no? Let's delve more into that. Where did you start, and what were the steps you took to reach this point in your career, Sec?
Well, I became a lawyer in 1988, and I practiced my law until 1998 when I was appointed by President Estrada as Assistant Secretary of the Presidential Management Staff. That's where I learned about the bureaucracy. For 31 months, I served under the Presidential Management Staff as Assistant Secretary. And thereafter, I worked at the Senate after President Estrada was deposed by a coup d'etat. I worked at the Senate as Chief of Staff of his spouse, Dr. Luisa Ejercito Estrada, and then went on to join Congress. And I ran for congressman in 2004, representing the 3rd District of Cavite. 2007, I was re-elected, and 2010. And until 2013, I was with the Rules Committee of Congress the whole time, Committee on Justice, but most of all, I was in the Committee on Rules for my whole stint in Congress. For the 5 Congresses that I've been in, it was always the Committee on Rules that I focused on, because it's the one that makes the Congress tick. We're the ones that carry the show and all the work of Congress. So that prepared me, because it exposed me to all the committees that are there in Congress, and I had a very good opportunity to learn about the bureaucracy through the primary sources of government. And that was a very rewarding experience for me. And I made sure that I would attend 5 to 7 hearings a week to learn more about the country, to learn more about our work as legislators. So that prepared me, I think, eventually for this job.
Are there any achievements you're specifically proud of, or that you would like to mention?
I'd like to think that I helped Congress through by being there every day. I think it's not just a milestone that I'm looking for. It was really the work ethic needed to be able to to carry the Rules Committee through every session and through the years that I served in Congress. We made sure that we were the first in and the last out. So it was really the grind of serving in Congress that was there for me to do, and I valued a lot. I valued that a lot.
It's like you were one of the authors of the biggest congressional reapportionment laws in the history of the Congress.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What were the criteria that you had to
Cavite
follow?
only had 3 districts at that time, but we were already serving. I was already serving a constituency of 750,000 people, and compared to the 250,000 threshold, we were being left behind by the equality of treatment to every congressman. So we thought it best to reapportion Cavite so that Cavite could move forward. There were provinces with less people, with more congressmen, and who got more resources from government. And that became my inspiration to talk to the other congressmen. There were 2 other congressmen at the time, to be able to reapportion the whole Cavite. And they left it to me, given my service in the province as a whole, and my closest to my father at the time, of course. I was the one who reapportioned the districts into 7. And then after I became governor, when I was planning to go back to Congress, they decided to make an 8th district so I could have a district to run to if I wanted to run again in Congress. So that's basically the story. The motivation is really to have more resources for Cavite.
I see.
The more congressmen, the more resources. So I probably Cavite progressed by leaps and bounds in the last 12 years, more than any other place in this country.
It's like, I know talking about losing elections is not a popular thing, but then I understand that you lost. You tried to run for mayor,
Yes.
but lost one time.
Yeah,
How did that experience change
You call
your
that the
perspective?
peaks and valleys of service, and it just adds to your character, how resilient you can be. You do not give up after one try. You just have to keep on going and keep on going through the grind, so to speak. This is a marathon. It's not an overnight thing. It's more of more of a tally of what you did in your whole life, not you did in one term or another.
Talking about wins this time, you won in the 2022 elections, national elections, but you accepted this post as the new chief of the Justice Department. What was your initial reaction when President Bongo Marcos asked you to become the next Secretary of
I was
Justice?
overwhelmed because I didn't expect to be asked to fulfill this duty. So I was overwhelmed. I was not prepared mentally to be asked that question. But just a matter of studying for it every day.
Yes.
It's really having a work ethic that propels you through all the pressure that comes with accepting a job like this. And by now, after more than 3 months after I was offered the position, I think I'm getting into the groove of. I've been working through. Getting into the mold of a full-time Justice Secretary.
And we'll know more about our Department of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla when we return dito lang sa The Chatroom.
Vaccine Nation. Mahalagang impormasyon ukol sa COVID-19 booster dose para sa mga kabataan. Maaari nang tumanggap ng booster dose ang mga batang 12 hanggang 17 taong gulang. Pfizer ang booster shot na rekomendado ng FDA para sa mga kabataan. Ito ay libre, ligtas at epektibo laban sa COVID-19. Ang booster dose ay maaari nilang makuha 5 buwan matapos ang kanilang second dose. Samantala, ang additional dose naman para sa mga immunocompromised ay maaaring ibigay 28 araw matapos ang kanilang second dose. Pwedeng mag-walk-in o magpa-schedule sa pinakamalapit na vaccination site sa inyong lugar. Huwag kalimutang dalhin ang vaccination card ng bata, proof of relationship, mga valid ID, at authorization letter at barangay certification ng guardian kung wala ang magulang ng batang magpapabooster. Para sa karagdagang impormasyon, kumonsulta sa inyong doktor o makipag-ugnayan sa inyong pinakamalapit na ospital o community health center.
Nagbabalik po ang The Chatroom. Kasama pa rin po natin si DOJ Secretary Boying Remulla. Are there any new policies or plans, programs that you want to implement during your term as a secretary?
They're not really that new. It's just the principle of maybe providing a more stable legal regime that the business community will look upon as a ideal for business to thrive in this country. The justice system has to be very predictable, if possible, and that's what we're trying to provide. We're trying to lessen the weaponization of the justice system in so many ways, so that people can go about freely in their lives, doing business in this country, and that the court system will be utilized more for commercial disputes rather than the enforcement and prosecution that is the job of the DOJ. So that's one of the policy issues that I believe is important for the whole country to see, that we want to keep things stable for the country.
When you say weaponize, who weaponizes and what do they weaponize for?
Creative lawyers have a tendency to file cases, criminal cases in commercial disputes or contractual disputes, family disputes, which all waste the time of the DOJ. With our limited resources, we have to attend to the needs of the country, enforcing the laws and prosecuting the crimes that are there really, that give a problem to the country. We do not want to put our hands into these things that should otherwise not be the job. These are private affairs, private disputes that should not be the job of the DOJ.
Like you mentioned in your first flag ceremony that you wanted to clean up specifically the Land Registration Authority, the Bureau of Corrections, and the Bureau of Immigration.
Yes.
Why? What made you say these things? Like, is there any information that was fed to you prior? And is this the biggest challenge that you have to overcome?
As a provincial governor, we ran a jail already before. We were running until now, they're running a Cavite provincial jail. I had an idea of how things worked in the system, but more so with the news that came out of Bucor for the last 12 years. I think that we saw the highlight of corruption happening here when the drug trade continued inside Bilibid, and that is not something we want to happen anymore. So we have to stop that. And the other, well, the Bucor has improved. Let's say, in the past 12 years, the last 2 years have been good for Bucor, and we want these gains to be preserved, and we want to do better at what we should be doing, which is to provide a proper climate for corrections, so that these people can come out of Muntinlupa as better people, or maybe come out of jail as productive members of society. So the corrections factor is very important. But the criminal aspect and the temptations it offers should not be countenanced or tolerated within our correction system.
It's like this is your first time to visit the prison as Justice Secretary.
Yes, Bilibid itself is the first time, yes.
Yes, sir. What are the things that you noticed, and what are the plans and programs you have in mind for the new Bilibid prison?
Well, it's really because it's the nearness of Bilibid prison to Metro Manila and to the surrounding communities. Maybe it's about time that we sought other places to bring it to, so that probably the corrections factor can be better in a better environment. But this environment is not anymore appropriate, probably, for the corrections to stay here. So we want to bring it out to farther areas.
It's like there was a little controversy before with the high value inmates. 8 of them passed away in the quarantine facility. What are you doing now in the department to sort of address that issue? Or
We're examining the report of the NBI in detail. We're looking at the the story told by the documents, by the 8-inch thick set of documents that were turned over to us. And I told the Prosecutor General, let me study it first before you act on this matter. Because we believe that there's a lesson to be learned from all of these things that happen. And from the conduct of the police operations inside Bilibid to the conduct of the quarantine before, and to the lives that were lost or through natural causes or otherwise, we don't know. We're looking at we're looking at finding out what's really behind all of the things that happened.
Yes, sir. So, Sec, what are your plans for the first 100 days? In a nutshell, what are your first directives? What is the policy?
To make people realize that there is a policy direction that's that can give hope to the people of the country, that we have a very stable justice system that can be relied upon, and if problems occur, there will be a way to solve these problems, and we just want to make things more predictable for every Filipino.
Did the President give you any orders, directives for your term in office?
He just said that I was the best person to do this job, and that I should do everything I could to make it a better department, make it better than what I found, than I found it.
Marami pa po tayong pag-uusapan sa pagbabalik ng The Chatroom.
Numbers, facts, insightful analyses, and context on information for a better perspective.
Developing stories in the country and around the world.
The most current news and issues that are relevant to today's times.
Get a rundown of it all every night, only here on PTV News Tonight.
Nandito ho tayo ngayon sa New Bilibid Prison. Ito po ay historical na pagbisita. First ever Secretary of Justice na bumisita dito sa New Bilibid Prison. As soon as the Secretary of Justice walked in, he was greeted by Director General Bantag and two of his assistant secretaries. Kasama po ni Secretary of Justice si Yusek Deo Marco of the DOJ as well. And as soon as he walked in, brief ho siya ng Bureau of Corrections officers, especially by Director General Bantag, where he laid out his plans and programs for the Bureau of Corrections under this new leadership.
Tuwang-tuwa ako, sir, kasi mayroon na kaming kasama na magpatupad ng pagbabago dito sa Bureau. Hindi na lang tayo nag-iisip, kundi si sir ang magbibigay sa atin ng guidance. At asahan ninyo, sir, na kami ay susunod, sir, kung ano man ang instruction ninyo, sir.
After which, nandito ho tayo sa maximum security ng New Bilibid Prison, where he is being guarded by the PNP and officers of the Bureau of Corrections.
Tinanong pala yan pag nabili natin ang parang
Umiikot lang po sila. Tignan ho natin kung ano yung napapansin niya and kung ano po yung mga plano at programa gusto niyang ipatupad dito sa Bureau of Corrections. Kakatapos lang po namin mag-inspect sa loob ng New Bilibid Prison dito sa Bureau of Corrections. Nagpapasalamat po ang The Chatroom kay Justice Secretary Boying Remulla sa kanyang binigay na all-access pass sa PTV. Malaki ang papel na ginagampanan ng mga kalihim ng gabinete bilang tagapayo sa ating Pangulo sa iba't ibang gawain ng Estado. At bilang responsableng mamamayan, mahalagang magkaroon din tayo ng malawak na kaalaman tungkol sa ating pamahalaan at sa mga pangyayari sa ating bansa. Kaya naman, ugaliing tumutok dito lang sa The Chatroom. Ako po si Attorney Miko Clavano. Magandang gabi, Pilipinas.